I said, "Unlock the phone. You're hurting my wrist." That's what happens when you people lie. Her arm twisted behind her back, face pressed against the hot concrete, surrounded by strangers who said nothing. The officer never checked her name, never read her rights. And by the time he found out who she really was, it was already too late. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Monique Jennings stood at the edge of Marlowe Park's fountain, holding a paper cup of water and watching her 12-year-old nephew, Amir, race around the basketball court. It was a calm Saturday morning in Raleigh, North Carolina. Trees rustled in the soft breeze. Joggers passed with headphones in, strollers rolled by. Her phone buzzed, an email from the city manager's office. She glanced at it briefly, smiled, then slipped it into her purse. That's when she noticed the squad car. It crept along the curb, windows down. A white officer behind the wheel scanned the park like he was hunting. He parked crookedly across two spaces, stepped out, and adjusted his belt. His eyes locked onto her immediately. Monique turned back toward the court, pretending not to notice. "Excuse me," the officer called out, already walking toward her. She looked up. "Yes. You here with that boy?" He pointed toward Amir. "Yes. He's my nephew. Can I see some ID? Is there a problem? Just need to make sure everything checks out. Got a call about a possible abduction. Boy matching the description." Monique's heart stuttered. "He's 12, she said, keeping her tone even. "We live 10 minutes from here. He's with me every weekend. Do you have documentation to prove that?" She blinked. "Documentation? To take my nephew to the park? I'll need your ID. And I'll need his name. Now." Amir had stopped playing. He sensed the tension. He stayed still, holding the basketball against his chest. Monique slowly opened her purse and handed over her driver's license. The officer snatched it, glanced at the name. "Jennings. You local? I've lived here for 9 years. I work for the city council." He didn't react. Instead, he turned to Amir. "What's your name, son?" "Amir," he said quietly. The officer looked back at Monique. "You have proof this is your nephew?" "Call his mother," she said. "Her number is in my phone. You can call her right now." "I'll need the phone." Monique hesitated. "You can dial it. I'm not handing it over." The officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, do not make this difficult." "Difficult?" she echoed. "You're accusing me of kidnapping my family member without cause." He grabbed her wrist. "Turn around." She froze. "You can't be serious. You're refusing to cooperate. That's obstruction." Amir screamed. "Don't hurt her." By the time she hit the ground, knees scraping the sidewalk, neighbors had started to gather. Phones came out. Eyes widened. But no one stepped forward. The officer yanked her purse open, pulled out her phone, and scrolled. He didn't ask. Didn't hesitate. In the recording app, a red dot blinked. She had hit record the second he asked for ID. Every word, every threat, every unnecessary touch captured. He hadn't even bothered to ask her name before forcing her to the ground. And he had no idea that the woman he was cuffing had once served as legal advisor to the city's police oversight board. The holding cell smelled like bleach and metal. Monique sat on a hard bench, wrists still aching from the cuffs. Her blouse was stained with dirt, and one knee had a tear from the fall. She stared at the blank wall in front of her, jaw locked, eyes dry. They hadn't told her what she was being charged with. No phone call. No Miranda rights. No processing. Just silence. Somewhere down the hallway, a man was yelling. Then laughter. Then a door slammed. Monique's mind raced, but her face didn't move. Not here. Not in front of the cameras. If they were even on. She heard a voice outside the cell. Footsteps. Then the same officer, the one from the park, stepped into view. "Up." She didn't move. I said, "Get up." Monique rose slowly. He opened the cell and pointed down the corridor. "This way." They walked in silence past offices and desks, deeper into the precinct. Her heels clicked against the tile, unevenly now, after being dragged. He stopped in front of a door. "Interview room B." He opened it and motioned for her to go in. Inside was a metal table bolted to the floor, one camera in the corner, and 2 chairs. She sat. He closed the door behind them. "No one's coming," he said casually. "You want to keep this nice, you start answering questions." Monique didn't blink. "I asked to speak with a lawyer." "That's funny," he said. "Because I haven't booked you yet." She stared at him. He leaned forward, resting both hands on the table. "You think working for the city council means something in here?" "I didn't say anything about my job." "You didn't have to." His eyes narrowed. "You people love to throw that around when things get tight. I don't care what you do downtown. I care what you did today. I bought my nephew ice cream. You resisted. You refused to unlock your phone. That's obstruction. He reached into a folder and pulled out her driver's license. Monique Yvette Jennings, 43, lives in Glenwood. Speaks like she owns the sidewalk. He tossed the ID across the table. You know what your problem is? She didn't answer. You think being calm makes you superior. You think because you didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't beg, that you're better than the others. I think I was arrested without cause. He smiled, just for a second. You weren't arrested. Not yet. Silence. Then he leaned closer. His voice dropped. You want out of here? Then unlock that phone. Let me see the contacts, the texts, the videos. Or you can stay on that bench all night. Your choice. She stared straight ahead. Get me a lawyer. He stood abruptly. The chair scraped loud against the floor. You just made this a whole lot harder on yourself. As he walked out, the door slammed behind him. And in that moment, Monique realized something terrifying. No one had written her name down. No one knew where she was. And if they decided to leave her in here, no one would even ask. Hours passed. No window. No clock. Monique sat on the cold bench outside interview room B, hands in her lap, back straight, every muscle tense. Her stomach growled quietly, but no one offered food. Her mouth was dry. No water. The hallway buzzed with low voices and fluorescent humps. Officers walked past her. None looked at her. None spoke. Finally, a tall woman in uniform approached Officer Langston. Her nameplate read. White, sharp posture, mid-30s. She stopped, flipped a clipboard. You were brought in under suspicion of child abduction and obstruction. Is that correct? No, it's not. Langston looked up. Excuse me. I wasn't told my charges. And I wasn't read my rights. Langston sighed like she'd heard it 1,000 times before. You were detained pending identification. I gave my ID. I complied. I was tackled in front of my nephew. Langston's tone turned clinical. Do you want to file a complaint? Monique hesitated. Is that the only way I get processed? Langston raised a brow. No. Filing a complaint is separate. But I'd be happy to note it in your file. What file? Monique asked. No one has booked me. Langston didn't respond. She tapped the pen against the clipboard. Wait here. She walked away. Across the hall, 2 officers leaned against a vending machine. One of them glanced at Monique, then whispered something. They laughed. She turned away. She thought of Amir. Was he still at the park? Did someone take him home? Was he scared? Her phone, still missing, was the only line to his mother. And none of them were making calls. A heavy door opened. Officer Harlan, the man from the park, stepped out again. Now in plainclothes. His sleeves rolled up. He looked at her. Room B. Again. She stood, slowly. Back in the room, a second man waited. Different build. Thinner. Tan blazer. Civilian clothing. Detective Watts, he said, not offering a hand. I'm here to ask a few follow-up questions. Monique sat silently. Ms. Jennings, your story doesn't match the initial report filed by Officer Harlan. What report? That you became aggressive when asked to identify the child. That you resisted. That you attempted to record the officer without permission. Monique's mouth went dry. That's not what happened. Watts nodded slowly, like he was humoring her. Did you record the officer? Yes. I had to. Where's the video now? It was on my phone. He looked at Harlan. Do we have that device? Harlan shrugged. Not yet logged. Watts turned back. So no video? No witnesses have confirmed your relationship to the boy. You refused to cooperate. I told him to call the child's mother. And where's her number? Monique stared at him. In the phone. You have the phone. We don't have access unless you provide the code. She shook her head in disbelief. You're obstructing again, Ms. Jennings. No, she said. I'm protecting my rights. Watts leaned back. You're not helping yourself. Harlan crossed his arms, watching her. Then Watts delivered it. If we can't confirm your relationship to the child by the end of the day, we'll be filing with child services. Monique froze. What do you mean? We'll treat it as an unverified custody incident. The boy will be placed under protective supervision until we reach his mother. He's home by now. Watts raised his voice. Then maybe she should have answered her phone. Monique's stomach sank. They weren't trying to find the truth. They were trying to bury her. And by the time they were done, she wouldn't just be another case. She'd be another record. Another statistic. Filed. Forgotten. And blamed for everything. The moment the words child services left his mouth, Monique's world narrowed. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was Amir. A 12-year-old boy who had seen his aunt thrown to the ground, who had screamed for help and received none, who was now, as far as these officers were concerned, just a case number without a guardian. Detective Watt stood up. You'll be held here until we complete the paperwork. If the boy's mother reaches out, we'll notify you. Monique shot to her feet. You don't even know where he is. Ma'am, sit down. No. You listen to me. His name is Amir Devon Ellis. His mother is Jalen Ellis. She lives at 412 Briarwood. Stop shouting, Harlan snapped. What's opened the door? Take her back to holding. Two officers appeared without a word. This time, they didn't bother with questions. One grabbed her arm, twisting it high behind her back. The other pulled open the hallway door. She was marched past the same desks, same vending machine, same silent stairs. No one met her eyes. No one asked why. They locked her in a smaller cell. No bench. No camera. Just concrete and stale air. Her breathing quickened. She paced, then stopped, then sat on the floor. It was freezing. Her pulse raced. What if Jalen didn't get the message? What if Amir was still waiting? Or worse, taken into custody by strangers who saw his skin before they saw his age? She'd seen it happen before. She had worked with displaced youth programs, knew how fast these systems moved when they didn't care. And right now, no one cared. Time passed. An hour? Maybe two? Finally, the door opened again. A new figure entered. Male. Dark suit. Black tie. He carried no badge. Miss Jennings. She stood cautiously. Who are you? I'm here on behalf of Wake County Juvenile Services. The minor you were seen with has been transported to his safe location. Monique's heart slammed against her chest. What do you mean, transported? Standard procedure when custodial guardianship is unverified. Until the child's mother contacts the office directly, he'll remain under supervision. You had my phone. You had her number. Why didn't you call her? That number was locked behind a passcode. You refused to unlock it. She stared at him. So you punished a child to punish me? The man didn't blink. Our concern is the welfare of the minor. Your behavior made verification impossible. Monique laughed bitterly. My behavior? He looked down at his folder. You will be held overnight for further review. Tomorrow morning, a formal hearing will determine whether you face charges. What charges? Obstruction, resisting, and possibly unlawful custody, pending verification. He stepped back, then paused. You're lucky we're not adding filing a false identity. Her voice dropped. Excuse me. There's no city employment record matching the name Monique Jennings at the council's office. She froze. That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. They were erasing her. Not just as an individual, but as a professional. As a citizen. As someone with power. They weren't just locking her up. They were deleting her voice. Monique didn't sleep. The cell was dark, the cement wood in one corner from a slow leak. She sat with her back against the far wall, hands folded in her lap, staring into the silence. At 4:17 a.m., the overhead lights flickered on. A short woman in a gray suit appeared at the door with a clipboard and an expression that didn't match the hour. Ms. Jennings. Monique looked up slowly. Wake County review hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. You'll be transferred to holding at the courthouse. Monique didn't answer. The woman continued, tone bored. They'll ask for your plea, confirm your identity, then decide if you're to be released, held, or formally charged. The word identity echoed. She stood up. Is Amir safe? That's not in my department. Of course not. Two deputies arrived minutes later. She was cuffed again, this time tighter, and led through the back of the precinct. A van waited. No windows in the back. Just steel walls and a bolt. She didn't speak the entire ride, but her mind was working. Rapidly, she began to catalog every moment, every officer, every policy violation. She replayed the arrest, the illegal search, the missed Miranda, the false reports, names, times, phrases. She stored them, not emotionally, strategically. By the time they reached the courthouse, Monique Jennings, the woman who sat quietly on the park bench hours earlier, was no longer sitting quietly. She was planning. You think I'm erased? You didn't even check the city registry. You didn't know whose file you were touching. She was placed in a temporary holding cell with two other women. One muttered about bail. The other rocked quietly, barefoot. Monique sat between them, silent, watching the hallway. At 8:54 a.m., a young bailiff opened the gate. Jennings. She stood. As they led her down the corridor toward courtroom 3B, Monique saw it. A pin. A gold lapel pin on the jacket of a man walking toward the same hallway. City seal. Her department. Her office. The man wore a staff tag. Temporary ID. New face. But he was real, and she knew what to do. When they passed, she said one word. Quietly. Redfield. He turned, confused. Then stopped. She didn't look back, but she heard it. The click of his steps changing direction. She'd just given him a name. A surname not spoken since last fall. A policy file. A buried misconduct case. A reference only a true staffer would recognize. If he was real, if he worked where she thought he did, he would look her up. He would know. And someone in that building, for the first time in 24 hours, would finally understand. They hadn't just detained another woman at the park. They had buried a senior compliance analyst for the Office of Civil Accountability, and she had been watching them long before they touched her. Courtroom 3B was nearly empty. A board clerk tapped at a keyboard. A young assistant DA sat hunched over a tablet, not looking up. Monique was led to the defendant's table in cuffs. The bailiff didn't remove them. No public defender was present yet. She sat in silence, letting the discomfort build. Every eye that passed over her, even if briefly, fed her resolve. Judge Ortega entered from the side door. Early 60s, white, gray hair combed back tight. Case 22487. State versus Monique Yvette Jennings. The clerk began reading the charges: obstruction of justice, resisting arrest, unlawful custody of a minor pending verification. Then a pause. Public defender not yet assigned. Judge Ortega looked mildly annoyed. Ms. Jennings, do you understand the charges against you? Monique spoke for the first time in court. I do. I do not accept them. A small murmur came from the back bench. A journalist, maybe. Someone shifting to attention. Ortega narrowed his eyes. Do you wish to contest custody of the child in question? He's not in question. His name is Amir Devon Ellis. His mother is Jalen Ellis. They live at 412 Briarwood Lane. Her contact number is registered with Wake County Records, Emergency Contacts File 11B. The room paused. The clerk began typing. Fast. Ortega blinked. That's specific. I work with county data systems. Civil Accountability Division. Now the assistant DA finally looked up. Monique continued, calm but sharp. There was no verification attempt because no one searched my name. You're holding me on falsified grounds. My employment is traceable under contract number 204B. My badge was taken when I was detained. You'll find it logged under Evidence Locker 9, Precinct Unit 27. The clerk stopped typing. Ortega looked toward the DA. Can you confirm that? The young prosecutor was already scrolling rapidly on his tablet. Sweat formed near his collar. Working on it, Your Honor. Just then, the courtroom door creaked open. A man entered. Slim, dark jacket. City lapel pin still shining. He handed a folded paper to the bailiff and whispered something. The bailiff brought it to the judge. Ortega unfolded it. Read. Stiffened. Court will recess for 10 minutes. He stood and left without explanation. The assistant DA followed him out, nearly stumbling over his chair. Monique remained seated. Still cuffed. Still silent. But something had changed. The man in the back, the one with the city pin, gave the smallest nod before stepping out. And though no one said a word, everyone in that room felt it. Whatever this case had been, it wasn't that anymore. Because somewhere, someone had just opened the wrong file. A file with her name on it. And discovered the quiet fact no one had checked. She wasn't just a city employee. She wrote the rules they were about to break. The judge returned 15 minutes later, but something in his posture had changed. Less confident. Less rigid. He adjusted his robe, cleared his throat, and glanced briefly at Monique, as if seeing her for the first time. Ms. Jennings, he said, voice slower, you will be released on your own recognizance pending administrative review. Formal charges will not proceed at this time. The courtroom was silent. The DA didn't even stand. He just nodded once, visibly sweating. Your personal items will be returned. If you wish to file a grievance, forms are available at the county clerk's office, Ortega added mechanically. Monique said nothing. She didn't nod, didn't blink. The bailiff finally unlocked her cuffs. She rubbed her wrist slowly. The man in the black jacket, the one with the city lapel pin, was gone. But his message had arrived. Outside the courtroom, she was handed a sealed plastic bag. Wallet. Keys. Badge. No phone. Where's my phone? She asked the desk officer. He frowned. Typed into his screen. Says it was logged by arresting officer. Harlan. Precinct 27. Monique's face stayed still. She reached into the bag and took out her city badge. Snapped it onto her lapel. I need to file a chain of custody challenge. The desk officer paused. A what? Form 318. A. You have it behind that second drawer. Right side. Civil evidence appeals. He blinked. Opened the drawer. She was right. 5 minutes later, she signed the form and kept the carbon copy. Then she walked out of the courthouse and didn't stop walking for 5 blocks. Only when she reached a quiet parking lot near the records building did she sit and breathe. Then she opened her wallet and pulled out a tiny, black plastic rectangle, no bigger than a postage stamp. Backup tracker. She'd slid it under her phone case months ago. Standard precaution. She opened a citywide terminal at a public workstation and logged in through an internal link only department heads had access to. Active signal found. Location. Precinct 27. Officer's lot. Status. Mobile. Timestamp. 14 hours, 6 minutes, and 27 seconds. Her phone was in a private vehicle, not evidence storage. And now, that was traceable. She copied the GPS log, screen captured the vehicle movement history, and submitted it into an anonymous internal report. Within 5 minutes, it was archived under Internal Affairs routing queue. Case flag. Red. Flag reason. Unlawful evidence retention. She stared at the screen. Now let's see who thinks I'm invisible. She stood, adjusted her blazer. Then she walked, not to her apartment, not to her sister's, but straight toward the precinct. Not to make a scene. To watch. To listen. And to make sure that when the foundation cracked, it wouldn't be loud. It would be surgical. And it would start with the one thing they never expected a woman like her to control. Documentation. The precinct looked different now. Not in structure, but in atmosphere. Monique stood outside the main entrance of Precinct 27, sunglasses on, expression unreadable. She didn't walk in right away. She waited. Observed. It was 2:38 p.m. shift change. Officers moved in and out, laughing, stretching, sipping bad coffee. Most didn't even glance at her. But one did. Officer Jenkins. Young, unsure, the one who had briefly looked up during her first booking. He noticed her now. Hesitated. Then quickly turned away. She filed that moment. Noted it. Then entered the building. The lobby receptionist looked up. Ma'am, can I help you? Monique flashed her city badge. Jennings. Office of Civil Accountability. Level 2 audit. The woman blinked. Audit. Your evidence logs are out of date. You've triggered an automatic review based on chain of custody failures. She said it so calmly, so professionally, that no one dared challenge her. The woman swallowed. Sergeant Harlan is not to be contacted, Monique interrupted. I'm here under seal. She was led past the lobby, into the rear hallway where evidence was stored. Open 3A, she said. The room smelled like dust and rubber. Inside, cabinets lined with tagged bags, sealed boxes, digital terminals blinking slowly. She walked to Terminal 6 and entered a secured access code only compliance officers used. Every precinct was required to update custody logs in 24-hour increments. She searched for her phone. No entry. No tag. No intake confirmation. But there was one entry newly created just minutes ago. Unusual. Item. Mobile device. Custodian. Harlan. B. Logged. 2:16 p.m. Method. Manual entry. No video file. No intake officer signature. Violation. Immediate. Documented. She took a screenshot. Exported it to a secure drive. Then submitted it under case number R.24719, Officer Evidence Mismanagement. Within the next 10 minutes, that file would hit 2 inboxes. One in the Internal Affairs Division, and one in the hands of the Assistant District Supervisor she'd trained 6 months ago. Monique stepped back into the hallway, thanked the receptionist, and left the precinct quietly. Across the street, Jenkins stood by a vending machine. He wasn't laughing now. He stared at her, pale, confused. He knew something had shifted, but he didn't know what. Not yet. Inside the precinct, Harlan returned from his late lunch. He didn't notice the small red dot blinking next to his login terminal. He didn't notice the internal alert that had already been sent. But in 48 hours, he would. When his supervisor asked him where the missing evidence went. When the audit report listed him by name. When his badge access was restricted. And when someone from IA showed up asking about policy violation 3.19b, the kind Monique had written into the handbook herself. Sergeant Brian Harlan arrived at work on Tuesday morning at 7:42 a.m. sharp. He parked in the same corner slot, nodded at the same front desk clerk, and swiped into the same break room. By 8:05, his login credentials had expired. Badge not authorized flashed the terminal screen. He tried again. Nothing. A lieutenant passed by, glanced at the error, and walked faster. At 8:12, Harlan was called upstairs. Internal affairs. 2 officers were waiting. One held a clipboard. The other didn't look up. Sergeant Harlan, you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation into a chain of custody violation involving item number 8402. A mobile device logged without witness signature. Harlan frowned. That's nothing. It was a... Your report contradicts video surveillance timestamps. What surveillance? Garage entry. Locker room access. Terminal activity. Body cam feed. He blinked. His mouth opened slightly, but the air caught. They knew. Every step, every second. And he didn't know how. At that same hour, across the city, a separate meeting took place in the Office of Civil Accountability. 3 compliance officers sat in a conference room. A file labeled R.24719 was displayed on the screen. It included timestamps, video stills, officer errors, and direct violation of Procedure 3.19b. One officer, a man in his 50s, closed the file slowly. Who submitted this? The youngest among them answered without blinking. Redfield escalation code. Silent flag. From where? Raleigh. Precinct 27. Who initiated it? Pause. Then. No sender attached. Only a code. The older man frowned. That's impossible. All red flags require a verified account. He stopped, because he remembered the code. He had seen it before. It was Monique Jennings. Her internal identifier. High clearance. Direct authorization. But she hadn't used it in nearly a year. Across the table, someone whispered she was detained last week. You heard. Silence. Then the senior officer stood. Notify Wake County Judiciary. Quietly. No emails. Meanwhile, in a quiet neighborhood 10 minutes from downtown, Jalen Ellis opened her front door to a courier envelope on the porch. No return address. Just her name. Inside was a USB drive. And a note written in careful, block letters. You were never supposed to know. Now you have everything. Timestamp 13 hours 24 minutes and 8 seconds. Gallery, recordings video 12. Jalen inserted the drive into her laptop. The screen lit up. And there, in full clarity, was her sister's arrest. Unprovoked. Undocumented. Unforgivable. She covered her mouth with one hand. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked up. Ms. Ellis. Yes. This is Officer Lambert, Wake County Child Services. Amir is being released to your custody immediately. We apologize for the delay. There's been clarification. Jalen didn't answer. She didn't need to, because the system had just blinked. And in that blink, Monique Jennings had reached into the walls of power and pulled down a piece. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. Thick. Plain. No insignia. It landed on the desk of Deputy Chief Marian Alston, the highest-ranking internal oversight official in the Raleigh PD. She didn't open it right away. She recognized the format. Internal reports from outside departments always came sealed like that, especially Level 3 violations. Inside were 82 pages. The title on page 1. Unlawful Detainment and Procedural Breach. RPD Precinct 27, April 14th Incident. Submitted under Policy 8.2 Silent Authority Clause. No cover letter. No author signature. Just facts. Timestamps. Photographs. Terminal logs. Transcripts. And a link to a redacted body cam video. The moment she clicked play, the room fell quiet. She watched as Monique Jennings was tackled, cuffed, and silenced. Watched the phone being taken. Watched the officer's posture. His voice. The assumption that no one would challenge him. And then silence. At the end of the file, in small gray font, was one final line. Documentation never lies. I was never invisible. You just never looked. That same morning, Officer Harlan was served with formal notice of termination proceedings. Not for the arrest. For the cover-up. For deleting the video file. For logging evidence without a second witness. His desk was cleared by noon. His access revoked by 12:17. No press release followed. No news story hit the local pages. But by that weekend, 5 internal policy trainings were updated. 3 supervisors were reassigned. And a memo was quietly circulated across all precincts. Chain of custody protocols are not optional. Surveillance inconsistencies will trigger independent audit. Noncompliance equals removal. Monique never returned to her old office. She didn't have to. Instead, she resigned quietly 2 weeks later, not in defeat, but in clarity. Her final act was submitting a private white paper to the city council. Bias at the point of contact, reforming first encounter protocols and urban policing. It was detailed, clinical, and piercing. No one knew she wrote it. No one needed to, because every department head who read it recognized the style, the precision, the unflinching calm. 2 months later, a new internal policy rolled out. First contact racial bias training. Mandatory custody reporting. Evidence handling upgrades. Not because of protests. Not because of press. But because one woman, sitting alone on a park bench, had been underestimated. Because they never asked who she was. Because they thought her silence meant weakness. And because none of them realized until it was too late that she wasn't just a file in the system. She was the one who built it.